define what a conventional wine is and how a natural wine is different. We're the largest buyer and seller of natural wines in the world. And so, because largely we have built a health audience around people who care about what they put in their body. And they care about the earth. So they care about organic farming. And when we talk about organic farming, one thing we would clarify is that all natural wines are always organically or biodynamically farmed. And biodynamic farming is a prescriptive advanced form of organic farming. Not all organic wines are natural, but all natural wines are grown organically. So this is all kind of confusing. So if you go in the store and it says organic wine, that doesn't mean it's a natural wine for the following two reasons. So there are three cornerstones that define natural wine. This is a worldwide understanding, even though there's no legal classification for natural wine. Everybody in the wine world knows what natural wine is. And there are three components to a natural wine that makes it different from conventional wine. And conventional wine is everything that's not natural, and I don't care what you pay for it. If you pay $100 a bottle or $15 a bottle, if it's not natural, you're getting components that you don't want to put in your body. And very often, the less you pay for it, the more chemicals it has in it, or the more alterations. So, but at $150, they still are not natural, or $250, or it doesn't matter what you pay for it. So, and in the U.S., less than 1% of U.S. vineyards are dry farmed. It's just nearly everything is irrigated, which comes with a whole host of other problems, which if we have enough time, we can talk about why irrigation's bad for the vine, bad for the planet, ultimately bad for you. But so natural wine has three cornerstones. One, it's always organic or biodynamically farmed, chemical-free farming. Number two, and this is the most difficult to understand, it is fermented with wild, native, indigenous yeast. Conventional wines are fermented with GMO, lab-cultured yeast.
Why do they do that?
Well, here's the reason. You can't make wine in very large volumes using this indigenous native yeast because it's fragile. And so you just can't make wine in great volume with it. And it's very temperamental and requires a lot more effort to guide the fermentation through completion.
Yeah, is it because the vats are so big, the yeast can't even get around? Do you know that?
Well, the yeast are just temperamental and they're fragile.
Gotcha.
Where these lab-grown yeast have been modified to be very strong, sturdy, easy to work with, and they'll withstand a higher alcohol environment. A high alcohol environment will kill a native yeast. So on the grape skin of every grape berry at the time of harvest, no matter what kind of yeast you use to ferment it, but every grape berry at the time of harvest has indigenous yeast on the skin. It's a white waxy film. You can scrape it off with your fingernail. And that indigenous native yeast is what natural wines are fermented with in what's called a spontaneous fermentation, because you don't have to do anything to ferment natural wine other than put the juice in contact with the yeast, which is when you press the juice out into a tank, the yeast goes with it, and it starts a spontaneous fermentation. Now, in conventional winemaking, what happens is that you press the juice from the berries, it goes into a tank. Then they pour sulfur dioxide into the tank to kill the native yeast because they don't want the yeast competing. So they use sulfur dioxide to kill the native yeast, and then they inoculate it with the lab-grown yeast. Right? And then the third thing is that natural wines don't have any of these additives. And in our particular case, we also have a limit on the amount of sulfites that can be in wine. So we lab test for sulfites. Now, sulfites are naturally occurring. Sulfites get a lot of blame for making people feel bad when it's generally not true.
It's just they drank too much.
Well, they're drinking these additives
right.
and color agents and other toxins and chemicals from farming and, potentially, quite often found in domestic wines are glyphosate. It's just a ton of stuff in there. We don't know exactly what makes you feel bad.